Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you have enjoyed the lounge and made connections with some people one-on-one, or have gone to the arena and visited with some of our supplier sponsors who have been fantastic in supporting this first annual summit. We're about to kick it off now with Aren and Brian as our moderators, and Dave, Lawrence, and Craig as panelists to speak about what I feel is one of the most important topics when it comes to home services, which is lead generation. All these guys are experts. They know so much about this space, so I look forward to hearing from them. And I'll let Aren and Brian go ahead and kick off as moderators. I'll remind you all that in the feed section, it's a chat for us all to see. In the Q&A section, go ahead and line up any questions you may have on this topic. We'll be able to pull from those at the 30-minute mark. And then lastly, which I'm going to keep calling out, is the raised hand area. If you use that, we can actually pull you on stage. We can all see you, which I would love to do. You can ask that any questions you may have live to our moderators or panelists, and then we can pull you back off the stage, okay? So thanks, guys. Brian and Aren, to you guys.
Thanks, Scott. Super excited to be here today. As Scott said, there's probably not too many issues that are more important to the home services industry, or really any franchise industry right now, than it is lead generation and the complexities of digital marketing. So today we have a great panel with us with experts in different areas of the digital marketing world. So first I have Aren on. Aren is the VP of Operations of Franchise Ramp, which is the company that I'm CEO of. We do branded lead generation, specifically with a focus on Facebook and Instagram. And we spent about $5 million last year on Facebook ads. So we spend a lot of money on Facebook and doing lead generation. That's our expertise. With us, we have Dave Boehm. Dave is the Vice President of Sales for HomeShark Digital. So Dave, welcome to the panel.
Thank you. So I'm the Vice President of Business Development. I've been involved with digital marketing in the home services space for a really long time, past 17 years. During that time, I've worked with companies involved in essentially all aspects of the business itself, from manufacturers, associations, franchise organizations, large mom and pop shops. And, I tell my wife my first language is contractor speak, or terminology, right? Second language being English. So it's been a really good run. Excited to be a part of this conference here. And, I've worked for some respectable names over the years: Home Advisor, Reach Local, Bird Eye. And now I'm with a company called HomeShark Digital. And our principles of the business have absolutely crushed it in the legal space. And, one of the most competitive spaces out there. And, we now have a branch dedicated to the home improvement space called HomeShark Digital. So, just a little quick background about me. Turn it over to somebody else unless you want me to talk.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the intro, Dave. So next with us, we have Lawrence Whipple. So Lawrence is the VP of Marketing for ProNexis and all of the brands that they work with. Lawrence, welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I've been in the home service, lead gen, and brand building space since 2007, actually. Long time. Started out quite focused on Facebook, ended up in Google Ads and conversion rate optimization over the years. And it's interesting to see what's going on, but there's some exciting technologies out there. And if you're like me, seeing what's happening out there, it gets you excited of the potential that we have now to reach into the minds and the lives of the people that we're trying to create relationships with. So, and then one other thing is I absolutely hate facial hair. So
yeah, a lot's happened since 2007 when it comes to the digital world. So you've definitely lived a couple lifetimes already in that environment. So next week we incorrectly named, we have Craig Johnson. Craig is the Senior Vice President of Sales for Opiniion. Craig, welcome to the panel.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, so a little bit of background on me. I've been in the franchise world for a long time, but not as a franchisor, but as a franchisee in the food industry. So back in the early days when I was playing college basketball, my family owned some Kentucky Fried Chicken stores, and that's kind of where I learned the franchise model. Interesting enough. Fast forward now, 20, 30 years, I've really embraced this thought of buyers are buying different, right? And we're leveraging Google to do that. We've really changed the game and how front and center reviews have become part of our normal life in the way that we buy. And I've really made it a quest, and so has Opiniion, in understanding that journey of the customer, and our product is designed around that experience. So super excited to be here, and thanks.
That's awesome. Thanks for joining us. So Aren, give a little intro of who you are and why people should listen to the guy that looks like he's 12.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Brian. So my name is Aren Johnstone. I'm the VP of Ops at Franchise Ramp. My background, I've been in digital marketing for the last 8 years, predominantly in the e-commerce space until Brian asked me to come over for my last agency. We're an e-com focused Facebook advertising agency. We worked with people in the digital marketing world. We actually been partnered very closely with digitalmarketer.com and a lot of their affiliates and brands. And I'm excited to be on the panel today. I've been at a lot of different marketing conferences. I've watched a lot of these marketing presentations and panels. And the biggest thing that I've always viewed and seen in these presentations is there's so much in the digital marketing world. Lawrence being in digital marketing since 2007 and me even since in the last 8 years, it's almost unrecognizable how different the space is. Even from 4 years ago, Facebook is not the same platform that it was. Google is not the same platform. And then every day there's news articles and publications talking about you should be doing this or you should be doing that. And so whenever all of us got together as a group, we really decided that the goal for this presentation and panel was to focus on key takeaways. And most of the people in this room, your guys' job is not actually to be implementing all of these marketing best practices or tactics and strategies. It's to hire the right people, to spend money on the right people, right projects, the right resources and time and focus. And so our job, we saw it as getting on this panel to give you guys that clear focus of what you should be doing, but maybe even more importantly, the things that don't matter or are fluff or don't produce a return on your investment in advertising and resources. And so we have a lot of experts on the panel today with a lot of experience in the home service space, since we're really excited to dive in a little bit more deep on key takeaways so that you guys can leave here with a couple key bullet points on how to increase your marketing return after this presentation. So that's my background pretty much, and we're looking forward to getting more in the weeds with you guys.
Yeah, that's great. So Lawrence, one of the things that you said in your introduction is that there's things that you are excited about that are coming for the digital marketing industry. So let's jump into that a little bit from a trends perspective. Like, what are some of the trends that we all see coming through 2020, which was a very interesting time to be in digital marketing, from the election to COVID to everything that's kind of home services having, in a lot of cases, record-breaking years based on, the change in behavior. So Lawrence, what are you excited about going into 2021?
Well, I think, obviously COVID hit everyone. Advertisers pulled out of Google, Facebook, these agencies were hit just like everyone else. And so they have adapted, and they've adapted through their technology, their algorithms. One of the things that we've seen, obviously, is the disappearing of data through Google and Facebook. Also, Apple came out with a recent privacy update. And so what that means is that we're now needing to rely more on two things. To me, this is where we get out of the typical, there's a lot of marketing practices that are maybe old school, and the marketing space in general is kind of fighting the old mentality. What's happening now is kind of forcing everyone to go to the next level, which is going to be brand building, is going to be knowing your customer, developing relationships with them. That's going to matter more and more. What you know about them and the ways that they interact and what they're looking for in a relationship with a company, specifically home services, that's going to matter more and more because your visibility is going away. But with that said, the exciting things that are happening with these platforms is their technology, their ability to understand the searcher or the customer, their intent. I get really excited about Facebook audience right now, Facebook audience matching, lookalikes, those kind of things, where you can just dump your entire past lead or customer list or appointment list, whichever stage of the funnel they're at, and you can actually, Facebook will actually start going out there and matching very similar. And not only can you target those, but you can actually pull that data in and get some really good information yourself to use in other marketing mediums. So that's just one thing. Google Ads, I think, they have similar technology, but it's not so readily available. But their algorithms, you just can't beat. And so they're automatic, they're smart bidding. That gets you excited when you have the right technologies in place. And we can, I don't know how much in the weeds you want to get into this, but just surface level, I would say embracing the technology that's coming out there smarter and better than we'll ever be at understanding the user's intent, the customer, what they're looking for. And so being able to get involved in that in a very smart way will lessen the burden you have on your own company, your own investment to do that kind of research. But at the same time, you're just going to get a lot of insight out of it.
Yeah, so you brought up a really good point, and it's like one of it is the transition from old to new, right? So over the last 10 years, we've seen a big transition from old school marketing. Like I've been in franchising since 2006 and owned franchises since 2006. And I remember the days of billboards, direct mail, yellow pages. I mean, I still, and the transition from all of those kind of methods to more of a digital focus. And then now we're talking about a transition from how do we utilize those platforms and what we could expect for those platforms. That's something that, Aren, we talk about all the time. So, kind of jump on that a little bit. Like how are these platforms evolving in kind of a way that our audience can relate to and understand?
Yeah. So Lawrence, one thing I think you said that's super important there is brand building. For our clients this year, especially with COVID, market by market volatility is the highest it's ever been. Results fluctuate because of outside factors such as Facebook changing its privacy policies, attribution policies, the election, New Year's, just changes in the market create a high level of volatility. And so it's more important than ever that businesses are focusing on, at least in my perspective and the data that we see, on the fundamentals. And so Lawrence, I think that key word there was brand building. So the days are gone where you can just run ads on Facebook and see results purely because of the algorithm. You actually have to focus on the blocking and tackling of marketing. So Lawrence, maybe you can speak to some of the best practices that you see, but are you focusing on the right copy? Are you speaking to your audience? Does your creative, is it fresh? Is it relevant with the times? Is it updated for your COVID policy or for the environment that we're in today? So maybe Lawrence, you can dive in on some of the changes that you've seen and what brand building means to you and what those blocking and tackling things are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had an experience, I do consulting, of course, and so one of the largest SEO firms, they actually do reverse SEO. They're reputation management SEO firms. Anyway, they consulted with me on actually doing their own SEO strategy, right? And in discussion with their top guys on how to get better rankings, what I was hearing was we need more SEO content. This was just last year, right? People are still focusing on this old school mentality of feed the search engines. But we need to be, so Google came out, I think 2018 with, it's been in place forever, but they just emphasized it more, their Google Eat policy, where, they have these teams of people that go through and quality assurance people that will go through and rate websites, and they have these manuals for them to work with. And it came out very clear that you should be focusing on 3 things for each website, each brand, and not just for the website or brand, but also the creators behind that content, which was, they call it Google EAT acronym. It stands for expertise, authority, and trust. And when you look at all that, it basically spells out the reputation. Basically, this is a brand building type of coming up from that perspective. And so that, if Google is saying that, and you can imagine their whole business model is based off of making sure that they know what the searcher, which is your prospective customer, is thinking and wanting all the time when they're interacting with their technology. if they know that that's what the consumer is looking for at this point, then we need to be on board with that. And it's not about feeding Google. It's what does that mean? Google Eat means building your brand value and building that relationship of trust. So that's where I think, I see this isn't going away. This is just going to get more and more important, especially with, like I said, the visibility of data going away. You're going to have to really be engaging with your customers. You're going to have to make sure that they know who you are, that you're trustworthy, that you have a good reputation, that you're an expert. All these things will become more and more important over time.
Yeah. One of the biggest things and by the way, Dave, feel free to jump in, or Craig as well. One of the biggest things that I think is a key takeaway for anyone who is either hiring an agency or working with marketing partners, or even your marketing staff, whoever might be leading that department, is customer feedback is more important than ever. So if you're running a marketing program based on purely data, then you're forgetting the most important part, which is your customers. And so it's really easy to actually get a hold of your customers. It's a huge lesson that we learned in our marketing this year is you should reach out to your best customers and your worst customers, and you should show them your messaging and your advertisements and get direct feedback from those people. And if what you're saying in advertising on Facebook or on Google is not getting you the results that you want, and then you ask someone, normally you'll figure out why by talking to your direct customers, the people who you're trying to get in front of and get them to engage.
That's a good segue, Aren. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, right, like our model is, track, test, and then track again, right? I think communication's critical in any relationship, and it's utmost important, right, to have that relationship with your agency so you can communicate what you think is working, what's not working, what changes need to be made, where the allocation of resources and funds need to go, right, to give you the best return on investment for your dollar. So yeah, I think you hit on a key point, Aren, that right, having that relationship, but being integrated into what's taking place, right, building your own knowledge as a business owner, so you're able to relate and respond to kind of the marketplace and the changes that are taking place in your locality, right? Because, right, we've got 50 states in the U.S., there's differences, right, in language and in just maybe how people correspond or interact with businesses. So it's just important to be able to relay that message to your agency so they can best, service you.
Yeah. In addition to that, Aren, you mentioned it, feedback, right? I think feedback really is the lifeblood of our businesses now, right? It's what we do with it that makes or breaks us. The good feedback, we want somehow to leverage it to attract more customers. The negative, we want to leverage to keep the customers that we have. So it's really what vehicle you're using to leverage that feedback. So one of the key, I think, takeaways from this as well is make sure that you have a tool that really focuses on your customer experience, and particularly feedback, both positive and negative, and then have a strategy of where those go. Yeah.
So I think that's a great segue. So to dive in a little bit on your business and what you guys offer, I think it would be important to understand, reviews is a huge industry. There's a lot of potential things that you can do to acquire feedback. And it's critical for both marketing and then also just to keep a pulse on how you're serving your customers in your industry. It'd be helpful to dive in on some specific, like, what are things that you absolutely should be doing in that space, and what are things that are not worth your time?
Yeah. Well, the first thing you should be doing is focusing on it. Think like your customer, right? If you're not thinking like your customer and how they're finding you, then you're behind the game already, because your competitors probably are. And what I mean by that is the often used search term of near me, right? Whatever your service is, near me. That's how people are searching now on Google. So the question then becomes, am I leveraging? Do I have a good story when someone does that? Is my business one that has a lot of reviews, frequent reviews, and the score is high? Those are the three components, right? Those are the things that are going to attract people to either call me, hit my website, email me, whatever the information I have on my Google My Business page. That's the gateway. And it's a very quick process. It doesn't take very long for us as consumers really now to look at that process and go, here are the 2 or 3 companies I'm going to call in that service. Okay.
So, real quick question on that. So what is a lot, everyone has different opinions on what is a lot of reviews, what's not a lot of reviews. What are some benchmarks on you should be acquiring this many reviews a month? This is a solid page or not a solid page.
Yeah. And I would say that really depends on the number of customers, the frequency of the customers. Like for instance, a sport clip is going to have a lot more reviews than a Mary Maids, for instance. And it's only just because of the velocity of the customers and how many you're touching on a basis. But I think it's less about my actual score doesn't need to be a 5.0 or a 4.9 or a 4.8. It needs to be in that 4 to 5 range and the reviews to back it. So all of us know that if we saw a business that had a 5.0 with 5 reviews, it's probably their relatives who are on there, that gave those reviews. Just think of it this way. It's I need to know and have a good story so that someone calls me rather than my competition. A good, strong score, and it doesn't have to be the very best. A lot of reviews doesn't have to be the most, but frequent reviews as well, which means if they're not within 30, 60, 90 days, then they're probably not using those to look at you as a potential partner in what they're looking for.
Go ahead.
Just me jumping in as well. If you're looking for maybe a benchmark, it would be what are your nearest competitor doing? How, the frequency, the amount. Obviously, Google and your consumers, they think alike. Google thinks like the consumer. The consumer is going to look at, who has the most reviews and who has the best reviews. That's just what they're going to go for. They're going to read the reviews, of course, and they're going to see who has the best reviews and who has the most of them, because that would be a determining factor of their reputation, their expertise. That's how an easy way to benchmark it is, who's your nearest competitor, what's the frequency, and what are the amount of reviews that they have.
Yeah, Google yourself. Do what your customers are doing. Follow the same journey that they would and see where it takes you.
Super interesting. I have one more question on the review space. So I'll never forget at one of the first conferences I ever went to on e-com, they said the most important moment is whenever you open the package, because it's the closest you'll ever get to your customer. And in franchising, most of businesses have the opportunity to actually be physically there with your customer. So everyone's all fascinated with digital marketing, but how much of your reviews, should you be asking for reviews in person, or is it all just automation and texting and emailing to collect those reviews?
So we found that automating, it's the key, right? Because as soon as you introduce the human element where you're rewarding people for asking or those types of things, it seems like your frequency goes down quite a bit. So whenever you can automate that process is when you're going to see those increase significantly. Automation is the key there for sure.
That's great. Is there anything that people out there are selling, or the marketing blogs are saying you have to be doing this, you have to be doing that, certain hacks that are just not valuable that you would advise people to move past and focus on other things?
Well, I would say avoid the shortcuts because they'll always come back and bite you. One of those could be paying for reviews. Don't ever do that because they're not real, they're not local, they're not relevant, and your potential customers can sniff that out. So avoid the shortcuts. Just make sure that you're focused on that journey. And that journey includes 2 things, really. It's how do I leverage feedback, the good, to attract more customers? I'm going to use Google to do that. Conversely, how do I use the negative to make my business stronger and retain more customers?
Yeah. Thank you. So all the review stuff helps Google and Facebook rankings, and it actually will help, if you have reviews on Facebook or engagement, it does help your Facebook advertising. Lawrence, I think it'd be really helpful to dive in onto some, key KPIs in the home service space that you're seeing, since you have such a wide reach and you have a lot of experience there. So, Facebook is kind of the monopoly right now in the space. What are some key KPIs that you look at whenever you're analyzing ad campaigns, or people should ask their agencies about?
Yeah, so I want to make this clear and simple, but there are some KPIs that probably are in the weeds that actually really impact the campaign. So I'll speak to everybody's familiar with the cost per lead, the cost per appointment, the ROI, the marketing percentage of that spend versus your sales revenue. Those are general everyone should be, those should be controlling matrix, right? We don't control matrix. Our primary controlling matrix are those matrix, right? The ROI returning matrix. So, but as far as getting into the algorithm, as far as getting your ads, your reach up per your cost, well, let's just say that there's engagement matrix. So for example, there's link clicks, and then there's total clicks. Link clicks are, when you put your description in your ad for Facebook, if it goes too long, it becomes a excerpt, and they have to click to read more. So Google or Facebook looks at how many people are actually clicking that read more, right? And that's a very good sign of engagement, of a very good ad. And so that ratio compared to the total clicks, which would be that click plus any other click. So if you have, view my website down at the bottom of your ad, that ratio, the higher that ratio, you can expect more reach in your campaign. So, there's others, shares and comments and whatnot, but those are actual ratios that we can actually work with and improve to help improve like I said, the reach of your campaigns versus your costs.
Key takeaway there is, if your agency or team that you're working with on your marketing doesn't know those things, that's important to have someone who does, right? Because there are some in the weeds things like that. Go ahead, Brian.
Aren, I think that's a great, one thing that I think about when I think about our audience here is that in some ways they're like me, right? Like, I actually built a marketing agency so that I didn't have to hire a marketing agency, and I could count on the people that worked with me, right? And so that's why Aren exists in my life, in the sense of, I know that he knows what he's doing and he's super qualified. Aren, how do you help the guys and girls that are attending today find that reliable agency or internal team member to lead their marketing efforts?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is anyone who claims that they have the perfect strategy automatically doesn't. I've been in this space a long time, and it really comes down to testing. And so if they say, yeah, this is the strategy that's going to win for you, I automatically do it, it works. That's just simply not true. Every brand is different. Facebook is different today than it was 2 months ago. I know that Lawrence can attest to that as well. So I would look for someone who has gone through hard periods, is willing to admit that, and then has explained to you how they have made it out of it or how they adapted. I think a really important thing to look at is just longevity in the industry. If you're hiring a CMO or looking at an agency, have they been through the ups and downs of Facebook? Have they been through the algorithm changes in Google? And what are some of their success stories? Like, how do they turn brands around? Or how did they solve problems? That's really all this is taking data, coming up with creative solutions, eliminating things that do not work, and coming to a conclusion that it does work. One of my big things that I am trying to focus on, and I think it's key takeaway for everyone here, is really focus on the the inputs, right? So Lawrence, you should have a team as smart as Lawrence who knows that the link click to click rate affects reach. But also, if the ads are not reflective of the brand that you want to build, it's not worth it, right? So Facebook data tracking is going down. There's less and less data attribution. I think that'll just continue. But we are buying impressions, and the value of advertising is getting your brand out there into the marketplace. And so if you're leading with the right message to the right people, those are going to be the brands that win, that have a strong message and a strong presence. So Lawrence, what are, if different industries on this call, what are just some average cost per lead metrics, conversion rate metrics from digital sources that they can use as benchmarks to go back to their team and analyze performance?
Yeah, so there's some industry data out there. I can only speak to our own verticals, but industry wide, and I should have pulled this up. I was going to pull it up, but I believe that a conversion rate for home services, just the home services industry benchmark was around 8%, right? And then cost per click, I think the average. I probably shouldn't be speaking to that because I don't want to throw off wrong information. You can Google it very easily. What we're seeing with our campaigns ourselves is, we're seeing 10, 12% conversion rate. We're seeing We're not too afraid of cost per click, actually. So, we'll go up as high as $12 average cost per click because we got, good conversion going on. Let's see, what other things? The cost per lead. For Facebook, we're seeing $30 cost per lead, but it's probably 25% the conversion rate of Google search, right? Google ads. For Google ads, we're seeing maybe, depending on the industry, anywhere from $40, $50 cost per lead to $150. But actually, I should throw in there that the technology we use mainly for conversion is bookings. So those actually are cost per appointments. And so I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know how far you want me to go down that road, but those are kind of just some anywhere from 40, depending on the vertical, $40 to $150 cost per appointment. If you're getting a 10 to 12% conversion rate on your landers, on your landing pages for Google search, obviously Facebook's going to be a lot lower. But that's where we're seeing where we're able to come up to, at least to this point, and of course we're going to continue to increase that.
Yeah. I think another thing on how can you work with your agency to maximize results is if they don't have a plan to get a positive ROI for you, then that's a big red flag. So if they're not transparent in all the information and data and what their plan is to accomplish a positive return, then they either don't know, don't have a plan, or are not hitting it and don't know how to get there. So Lawrence is very analytical and is going to go through all of those individual stages: cost per click, lead, cost per lead, conversion rate, landing page conversion rate, back in appointment percentage. Like, there's a lot of metrics there, but he knows them all and he knows his goals on those individual stages. And so have that in-depth conversation. Just ask them, what are your goals on each one of these stages? And if they can't give you an answer, just sit there and wait till they do. And that might be a sign to look at a different agency. Dave, I do want to touch on SEO, and feel for anybody else, feel free to chime in. SEO is, I've always called it since I got into this space, black magic. Google changed their algorithm. They report they have like 500 statistics on this matters, that matters, and it changes every day, it seems. So, I think it's really important in this space to weed out what you shouldn't worry about and all the hacks that the agencies are telling you, this is what works, this is what doesn't. So from your perspective, what are some key things that people should be focusing on for you and for the group?
Yeah, so they've got over 200 different ranking factors: page speed, HTTPS, keyword in the meta tags and titles. So I think the key things that you can focus on and some of the things that you can actually control would be, your website being number one, right? Uber important that you've got a well-coded, authoritative, website. It's the storefront of the 21st century. Right? It should be the backbone of your marketing program. So I think you've really got to kind of start and take a look at your website. How does it relate to your audience? Does it have high quality content on it? Does it have authoritarian links on there? You should be kind of hyper focused on the local level, with the Google My Business, the LSAs. So, I think there's a couple of things that, you want Google to do. One is recognize the brand at the national level, right? And two, recognize it at the local level, right? So passing that authority down to the individual franchisees.
Yeah.
So, I just think that the structure overall becomes critical.
Yeah.
So Scott, what were you going to say?
Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of questions lined up. We've got 10 minutes left. If you could grab some questions from the Q&A panel area.
Absolutely.
Great, that'd be great. Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so one of the questions that we had in here, which I think is great, is like it's very easy when you get a bunch of people in the marketing industry to like jump way into the weeds, into the details of it, which I think the details are important, but in the same note, if you don't have context, then it becomes a little bit kind of challenging. So let's just start with I think a really fundamental question is, where is the best place to get digital lead generation today for home services business? Lawrence, that'd be a great question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So hands down, it's going to be your content marketing. That you can consider an asset, whereas ad campaigns you could consider an expense. Content marketing is your long-term game. It's return over return, and that's of course going to be an SEO, social, and ad primary play. But we're all forms of value content that cover the EAT segment. So just getting into that, just some key takeaways on SEO, for example. Content marketing with reviews, huge. So the most return I've found, that lifts in return that I've found have been to do with hyper localization, right? Getting personal, getting targeted, and reviews are huge with that. And that goes with SEO, that goes with Facebook, that goes with ads, Google Ads. When you can get into that hyper local arena, I've seen cost per lead drop, I've seen conversion go up, all of those things. So I would say your content marketing, just on a review scale, and what you can do with that in different forms of reviews and in different ways that you can distribute those reviews. And I got a lot to say on this, but I'll leave it at that unless you want to dig into it. But that would be where I would go. The next would, of course, be search intent, right? The Google Ads.
Yeah, Lawrence is very consistent. I think that he said in a couple of things that he's talked about, which is there are no more shortcuts in digital marketing. Like Aren and I talk all the time about digital marketing used to be very hacky, and you could just hack your way to like some sort of short-term outcome. And that's less of, what it is today. So, so we got that question answered. So Lawrence, do you do lead generation for franchise development? That's something that we do not do. Okay. So for franchise development, what's the best strategy there? Is it SEO or a pay-per-click strategy for franchise lead generation?
Yeah, so good question. Again, this will go back to content marketing, but really the medium that we're focused on is LinkedIn. If I heard you right? We're talking potential franchise owners.
Yep.
Is that what yeah. So, but with funnels, right? Full funnel initiative, and I should just pitch that out there. Everything you should do should be full funnel, but full funnel initiative with LinkedIn. And with LinkedIn, what you can do is you can actually go in and get research and target people who have either worked for your competitor franchisors in some lower capacity, and now maybe are looking for an ownership position, or you can dial in really good with background, with income, all these different things that allow you to get into it. So LinkedIn ads and LinkedIn connection requests, and there's a whole thing I could go into that, but I would say that's the medium, and then the strategy would be a full funnel campaign where you're introducing your brand, introducing yourself, and then you lead them through a process of, are you interested? Where are you at? And of course at the other end is, hey, we got a great opportunity for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. Have any of you leveraged pay per call platforms as part of your mix, and while you continue to build your brand? So short term combined with long term strategies.
I have. I wasn't. I dropped that off just personally. Everyone should test, right? It's all different depending on the niche and your customer base and those kind of things. But we have done call campaigns with ads and even Facebook, and we've seen that kind of leaves a lot on the table. Whereas they have one chance to call you, they may or may not, and that's kind of the last interaction you have, unless you have some really good analytics going on.
So one question we had is, can you explain what Apple recently changed with their relationship with Facebook? Aren, that'd be a good one for you.
Lawrence, I know you prepped an answer for this topic, so you'll probably get really in the weeds here. This is right up your alley.
Yeah, so really just simple is the updates to the new Apple OS, the new Apple iPhones. When you download the Facebook app, or any other apps that are going to be tracking your behavior, it's going to prompt you. It's going to pull up a prompt and say, "Are you okay with Facebook tracking your information?" And you can just see right there. I mean, what are people going to say? Maybe they don't care. Maybe they enjoy Facebook reading your minds or listening to your conversations like they do. But a lot of people, Facebook has done their own internal research, and they say 60% increase in cost per lead based off of just this one update.
Yeah. One other thing is I personally believe that trackability is only going to get harder. Facebook changed their default attribution window from 28-day click to 7-day click. There might be a time in the next couple of years where pixel tracking is just gone. So, one, if you have a big business, invest early in server-side attribution, like sending events directly from your API to Facebook. Do that now before you have to. And then on the other thing is everyone here is focused on quality rather than quantity. So don't make a lot of blogs, make the right blogs. Don't post a lot to social, post quality content. Don't get a lot of reviews, get good reviews. Don't worry about getting necessarily, everyone has a magical lead cost number. It might be $10 or whatever it is. Focus on getting the right customers and make sure your ads have the right message, because tracking is only going to get harder.
Okay, last question. So we've been hearing a lot about Google Display Network being inundated with bots. Some articles have mentioned as high as 75%. So what do you guys think about bots and like their kind of involvement in, this space?
Yeah, I personally, this is just from my experience, I never lead with Google Display. It's always going to be within the funnel somewhere where we already have, some understanding of who the user is, what they're looking for. And, it's more of an omnipresent type of strategy where they see us, they know us, and then we're tracking them and showing further information to proceed them down the funnel. I'm never leading with Google Display because of that particular situation where, there's a lot of click farms out there, and I think remarketing is a safe play.
Okay, so Aren, one of the things that you said, we wanted everybody to be kind of prepared to throw out. So we have about 4 minutes left before we go into the individual rooms. So what is one thing, Aren, that people can take away and do after this presentation to improve their results when it comes to Facebook ads?
Yeah, my number one, I thought a lot about this, is show your Facebook ads to customers and see what they actually say to you. It's cheap. It's actually free to do. And you'll get some really interesting feedback that the data will not tell you.
Mm-hmm. Lawrence, what's one thing that our attendees can do to improve their results when it comes to like a Google PPC strategy?
Yeah, hyper-localization, hands down. Just get local. There's plenty of technology to where these ads can be dynamic, where if someone's in a certain city, that city name can be put in within the ad, and then that can translate to your landing page. So that message sent is consistent all the way through. It's very easy. Google's made it easy. Just Google it even, or follow up with a question from, I don't know if you can follow up with me, but I'm happy to show you some of those things. But that's been the biggest lift I've seen with such an easy investment.
Lawrence, if somebody wants to get more specific information from you on benchmarks for their industry, what's a good way that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, just email me. I don't know if can I just chat my email here, I guess, and I'll just put that in there and you guys can fire away.
Okay, Dave, what can we do on SEO to improve our results in the short term? Little black magic.
Yeah, you need to start out and just take a look at where you currently are, right, on in the marketplace, right? Just do the Google searching, do the research on your own. Take a look at the NAP, the name, address, phone numbers, making sure that's accurate across the board. Make sure your listing's showing up where you want it to show up. If it's not, get with somebody to get a strategy in place to make that relevant. I think, make sure you show up in the knowledge panel of Google if possible. So I just think, start out at ground zero, do some research, take a look at your business, how it looks from a customer standpoint, and then get with somebody to get a strategy in place to fix it.
All right, Craig, you already gave us some really good takeaways when it came to reviews. Do you have any single one thing that they should do?
Gosh, it just comes back to spend a half hour and think like one of your potential customers. I mean, I read statistics all the time on reviews, and some of those are like 94% of positive reviews make consumers more likely to do business with you, right? 92% say a negative review will keep someone from doing business with you. But the one that always stands out to me, and Aren had mentioned it earlier about trust, is that 79% of consumers trust online reviews like a personal recommendation. And to me, that just blows my mind how that's just changed over the last several years here. And if that's the case, what are you doing to leverage that? And it's just those three things. And just focus on the number of reviews that you have, your score, and the frequency of those reviews. You can do it on your own, but it's a lot easier and really inexpensive to automate that.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for. All right, Scott's on. I think he's going to take the wheel at this point.
Okay. Hey, Brian, Aren, thank you for moderating. Dave, Lawrence, and Craig, thank you so much for joining us. There were a few questions in that were left unanswered. Feel free to join the lounge after this. Each of the moderators and speakers will have a table set aside to answer your questions directly. There were a few questions I noticed there on franchise sales as well. We do have a panel tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central. And as an example, I know we've got Marcus Mura who will be there. He's a pro when it comes to LinkedIn advertising for lead gen for franchise sales. So feel free to tune into that. But thank you guys again for your time. Please go ahead and jump into that lounge and answer questions to them individually. And we'll see you all in about 15 minutes. Thanks.